Hi and welcome. So glad to have you joining me here today as we are continuing with our reading of The Magic of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Today we're going to be reading two more chapters. If you remember in yesterday's reading, we had Kiki Aru and Rigetto meeting with the animals in the forest of Gugu, where those animals in the forest were deciding if they were going to help with the invasion of Oz. But while they were having this discussion, the wizard, Dorothy, the cowardly lion, and the hungry tiger all came into the meeting. And Kiki Aru then transformed them and Rigetto into other animals. So that's where we're going to pick up with our story today with chapter 13, The Loss of the Black Bag. Kiki Aru, in the form of the Librarian, had scrambled into the high, thick branches of the tree so no one could see him, and there he opened the wizard's bag, which he had carried away in his flight. He was curious to see what the wizard's magic tools looked like, and hoped he could use some of them, and so secure more power. But after he had taken the articles one by one from the bag, he had to admit that they were puzzles to him, for unless he understood their uses, they were of no value whatever. Kiki Aru, the high-up boy, was no wizard or magician at all, and could do nothing unusual except use the magic word he had stolen from his father on Mount Munch. So he hung the wizard's black bag on a branch of the tree, and then climbed down to the lower limbs that he might see what victims of his transformations were doing. They were all on top of the flat rock, talking together in tones so low that Kiki could not hear what they said. "This is certainly a misfortune," remarked the wizard in the fox's form. "But our transformations are a sort of enchantment which is very easy to break, when you know how and have the tools to do it. There are tools in my black bag, but where is the bag?" No one knew that, for none had seen Kiki Aru fly away with it. "Let's look and see if we can find it," suggested Dorothy the lamb. So they left the rock, and all of them searched the clearing, high and low, without finding the bag of magic tools. The goose searched as earnestly as the others, for if he could discover it, he meant to hide it where the wizard could never find it, because if the wizard changed him back to his proper form, along with the others, he would then be recognized as Rigetto the gnome, and they would send him out of the land of Oz, and so ruin his hopes for conquest. Rigetto was not really sorry, now that he thought about it, that Kiki had transformed all these Oz folks. The forest beasts, it was true, had been so frightened that they would now never consent to be transformed into men, but Kiki could transform them against their will, and once they were in human forms, it would not be possible to induce them to conquer the Oz people. So all was not lost, thought the old Gnome King, and the best thing for him to do was to rejoin the high-up boy who had the secret of the transformations. So, having made sure the wizard's black bag was not in the clearing, the goose wandered away through the trees when the others were not looking, and when out of their hearing, he began calling, "Kiki Aru! Kiki Aru! Quack, quack! Kiki Aru!" The boy and the woman, the fox and the lamb and the rabbit, not being able to find the black bag, went back to the rock, all feeling exceedingly strange. "Where's the goose?" asked the wizard. "He must have run away," replied Dorothy. "I wonder who he was." "I think," said Gugu the king, who was the fat woman, "that the goose was the stranger who proposed that we make war upon the Oz people. If so, his transformation is merely a trick to deceive us, and he is now gone to join his comrade, that wicked Librarian who obeyed all his commands." "What shall we do now?" asked Dorothy. "Shall we go back to the Emerald City as we are, and then visit Glinda the Good and ask her to break the enchantments?" "I think so," replied the wizard fox, "and we can take Gugu the king with us, and have Glinda restore him to his natural shape. But I hate to leave my bag of magic tools behind me. for with it I shall lose much of my power as a wizard. Also, if I go back to the Emerald City in the shape of a fox, the Oz people will think I am a poor wizard, and I will lose their respect for me." "Let us make still another search for your tools," suggested the Cowardly Lion, "and then, if we fail to find the black bag anywhere in this forest, we must go back home as we are." "Why did you come here, anyway?" inquired Gugu. "We wanted to borrow a dozen monkeys to use on Ozma's birthday," explained the wizard. "We were going to make them small and train them to do tricks and put them inside Ozma's birthday cake." "Well," said the Forest King, "you would have had to get the consent of Rango the Gray Ape to do that. He commands all the tribes of the monkeys." "I'm afraid it's too late now," said Dorothy regretfully. "It was a splendid plan, but we've got troubles of our own, and I don't like being a lamb at all." "You're nice and fuzzy," said the Cowardly Lion. "That's nothing," declared Dorothy. "I've never been specially proud of myself, but I'd rather be the way I was born than anything else in the whole world." The Glass Cat, although it had some disagreeable ways and manners, nevertheless realized that Trot and Cap'n Bill were its friends, and so was quite disturbed at the fix it had gotten them into by leading them to the Isle of the Magic Flower. The ruby heart of the Glass Cat was cold and hard, but still it was a heart, and to have a heart of any sort is to have some consideration for others. But the queer, transparent creature didn't want Trot and Cap'n Bill to know it was sorry for them, and therefore it moved very slowly until it had crossed the river and was out of sight among the trees of the forest. Then it headed straight toward the Emerald City and trotted so fast that it was like a crystal streak crossing the valleys and plains. Being glass, the cat was tireless, and with no reason to delay its journey, it reached Ozma's palace in wonderfully quick time. "Where's the wizard?" asked the pink kitten. It asked the pink kitten, which was curled up in the sunshine on the lowest step of the palace entrance. "Don't bother me," lazily answered the pink kitten, whose name was Eureka. "I must find the wizard at once," said the Glass Cat. "Then find him," advised Eureka, and went to sleep again. The Glass Cat darted up the stairway and came upon Toto, Dorothy's little black dog. "Where's the wizard?" asked the cat. "Gone on a journey with Dorothy," replied Toto. "When did they go, and where have they gone?" demanded the cat. "They went yesterday, and I heard them say they would go to the great forest in the Munchkin country." "Dear me," said the Glass Cat, "that is a long journey." "But they rode on the Hungry Tiger and the Cowardly Lion," explained Toto, "and the wizard carried his black bag of magic tools." The Glass Cat knew the great forest of Gugu well, for it had traveled through this forest many times in its journeys through the land of Oz, and it reflected that the forest of Gugu was nearer to the Isle of the Magic Flower than the Emerald City was, and so, if it could manage to find the wizard, it could lead him across the Gillikin country to where Trot and Cap'n Bill were prisoned. It was a wild country and little traveled, but the Glass Cat knew every path, so very little time need be lost after all. Without stopping to ask any more questions, the cat darted out of the palace and away from the Emerald City, taking the most direct route to the forest of Gugu. Again, the creature flashed through the country like a streak of light, and it would surprise you to know how quickly it reached the edge of the great forest. There were no monkey guards among the trees to cry out a warning, and this was so unusual that it astonished the cat. Going farther into the forest, it presently came upon a wolf, which at first bounded away in terror. But then, seeing it was only a Glass Cat, the wolf stopped, and the cat could see it was trembling as if from a terrible fright. "What's the matter?" asked the cat. "A dreadful magician has come among us," exclaimed the wolf, "and he's changing the forms of all the beasts, quick as a wink, and making them all his slaves." The Glass Cat smiled and said, "Why, that's only the Wizard of Oz. He may be having some fun with you forest people, but the wizard wouldn't hurt a beast for anything." "I don't mean the wizard," explained the wolf. "And if the Wizard of Oz is that funny little man who rode a great tiger into the clearing, he's been transformed himself by this terrible magician." "The wizard transformed? Why, that's terrible, impossible," declared the Glass Cat. "No, it isn't. I saw him with my own eyes, changed into the form of a fox, and the girl who was with him was changed into a woolly lamb." The Glass Cat was indeed surprised. "When did it happen?" it asked. "Just a little while ago, in the clearing. All the animals had met there, but they ran away when the magician began his transformations. And I'm thankful I escaped with my natural shape. But I'm still afraid, and I'm going somewhere to hide." With this, the wolf ran on, and the Glass Cat, which knew where the big clearing was, went toward it. But now it walked more slowly, and its pink brains rolled and tumbled around at a great rate because it was thinking over the amazing news the wolf had told it. When the Glass Cat reached the clearing, it saw a fox, a lamb, a rabbit, a munchkin boy, and a fat Gillikin woman, all wandering around in an aimless sort of way, for they were again searching for the black bag of magic tools. The cat watched them a moment, and then it walked slowly into the open space. At once the lamb ran toward it, crying, "Oh, wizard, here's the Glass Cat." "Where, Dorothy?" asked the fox. "Here." The boy and the woman and the rabbit now joined the fox and the lamb, and they all stood before the Glass Cat, and speaking together, almost like a chorus, asked, "Have you seen the black bag?" "Often," replied the Glass Cat, "but not lately." "It's lost," said the fox, "and we must find it." "Are you the wizard?" asked the cat. "Yes." "And who are these others?" "I'm Dorothy," said the lamb. "I'm the Cowardly Lion," said the Munchkin boy. "I'm the Hungry Tiger," said the rabbit. "I'm Goo-Goo, the King of the Forest," said the fat woman. The Glass Cat sat on its hind legs and began to laugh. "My, what a funny lot!" exclaimed the creature. "Who played this joke on you?" "It's no joke at all," declared the wizard. "It was a cruel and wicked transformation, and the magician that did it has the head of a lion, the body of a monkey, and the wings of an eagle, and a round ball on the end of his tail." The Glass Cat laughed again. "That magician must look funnier than you do," it said. "Where is he now?" "Somewhere in the forest," said the Cowardly Lion. "He just jumped into that tall maple tree over there, for he can climb like a monkey and fly like an eagle. And then he disappeared into the forest." "And there was another magician just like him who was his friend," added Dorothy. "But they probably quarreled, for the wickedest one changed his friend into the form of a goose." "What became of the goose?" asked the cat, looking around. "He must have gone away to find his friend," answered Goo-Goo the King. "But a goose can't travel very fast, so we could easily find him if we wanted to." "The worst thing of all," said the wizard, "is that my black bag is lost. It disappeared when I was transformed. If I could find it, I could easily break these enchantments by means of my magic, and we would resume our forms again. Will you help us search for the black bag, friend cat?" "Of course," replied the Glass Cat, "but I expect the strange magician carried it away with him. If he's a magician, he knows you need that bag, and perhaps he's afraid of your magic. So he's probably taken the bag with him, and you won't see it again unless you find the magician." "That sounds reasonable," remarked the lamb, which was Dorothy. "Those pink brains of yours seem to be working pretty well today." "If the Glass Cat is right," said the wizard in a solemn voice, "there's more trouble ahead for us. That magician is dangerous, and if we go near him, he may transform us into shapes not as nice as these." "I don't see how we could be any worse off," growled Goo-Goo, who was indignant because he was forced to appear in the form of a fat woman. "Anyway," said the Cowardly Lion, "our best plan is to find the magician and try to get the black bag from him. We may manage to steal it, or perhaps we can argue with him into giving it to us." "Why not find the goose first?" asked Dorothy. "The goose will be angry at the magician, and he may be able to help us." "That isn't a bad idea," returned the wizard. "Come on, friends, let's find that goose. We will separate and search in different directions, and the first to find the goose must bring him here, where we will all meet again in an hour." Chapter 14. The Wizard Learns the Magic Word. Now the goose was the transformation of old Ruggedo, the king of the gnomes, who was at one time the king of the gnomes, and he was even more angry at Kiki Aru than were the others whose shapes had been changed. The gnome detested anything in the way of a bird, because birds lay eggs, and eggs are feared by all gnomes more than anything else in the world. A goose is a foolish bird, too, and Ruggedo was dreadfully ashamed of the shape he was forced to wear, and it would make him shudder to reflect that the goose might lay an egg. So the gnome was afraid of him, and afraid of everything around him. If an egg touched him, he could then be destroyed, and almost any animal he met in the forest might easily conquer him, and that would be the end of old Ruggedo the gnome. Aside from these fears, however, he was filled with anger against Kiki, whom he had meant to trap by cleverly stealing from him the magic word. The boy must have been crazy to spoil everything the way he did. But Ruggedo knew that the arrival of the wizard had scared Kiki, and he was not sorry the boy had transformed the wizard and Dorothy and made them helpless. It was his own transformation that annoyed him and made him indignant. So he ran about the forest, hunting for Kiki, so that he might get a better shape and coax the boy to follow his plans to conquer the land of Oz. Kiki Aru hadn't gone very far away, for he had surprised himself as well as the others by the quick transformations, and was puzzled as to what to do next. Ruggedo the gnome was overbearing and tricky, and Kiki knew he was not to be depended on. But the gnome could plan and plot, which the high-up boy was not wise enough to do, and so, when he looked down through the branches of the tree and saw a goose waddling along below and heard it cry out, "Kiki Aru! Quack, quack! Kiki Aru!" the boy answered in a low voice, "Here I am," and swung himself down to the lowest limb of the tree. The goose looked up and saw him. "You've bungled things in a dreadful way," exclaimed the goose. "Why did you do it?" "Because I wanted to," answered Kiki. "You acted as if I was your slave, and I wanted to show these forest people that I am more powerful than you." The goose hissed softly, but Kiki did not hear that. Old Ruggedo quickly recovered his wits and muttered to himself, "This boy is the goose, although it is I who wear the goose's shape. I will be gentle with him now and fierce with him when I have him in my power." Then he said aloud to Kiki, "Well, hereafter I will be content to acknowledge you the master. You bungled things, as I said, but we can still conquer Oz." "How?" asked the boy. "First, give me back the shape of the Librarian Eagle, and then we can talk together more conveniently," suggested the gnome. "Wait a moment, then," said Kiki, and climbed higher up into the tree. There he whispered the magic word, and the goose became a Librarian as he had been before. "Good," said the gnome, well pleased, as Kiki joined him by dropping down from the tree. "Now, let us find a quiet place where we can talk without being overheard by the beasts." So the two started away and crossed the forest until they came to a place where the trees were not so tall nor close together, and among these scattered trees was another clearing, not so large as the first one, where the meeting of the beasts had been held. Standing on the edge of this clearing and looking across it, they saw the trees on the farther side full of monkeys, who were chattering together at a great rate of the sights they had witnessed at the meeting. The old gnome whispered to Kiki not to enter the clearing or allow the monkeys to see him. "Why not?" asked the boy, drawing back. "Because those monkeys are to be our army, the army which will conquer Oz," said the gnome. "Sit down here with me, Kiki, and keep quiet, and I will explain to you my plan." Now neither Kiki Aru nor Ruggedo had noticed that a sly fox had followed them all the way from the tree where the goose had been transformed into the Librarian. Indeed, this fox was none other than the Wizard of Oz, and had witnessed the transformation of the goose, and now decided he would keep watch of the conspirators and see what they would do next. A fox can move through the forest very softly, without making any noise, and so the wizard's enemies did not suspect his presence. But when they sat down by the edge of the clearing to talk, with their backs toward him, the wizard did not know whether to risk being seen by creeping closer to hear what they said, or whether it would be better for him to hide himself until they moved on again. While he considered this question, he discovered near him a great tree which had a hollow trunk. There was a round hole in this tree, about 3 feet above the ground. The wizard fox decided it would be safer for him to hide inside the hollow tree. So he sprang into the hole and crouched down in the hollow, so that just his eyes came to the edge of the hole by which he had entered. And from here he watched the forms of the 2 Librarians. "This is my plan," said the Gnome King to Kiki, speaking so low that the wizard could only hear the rumble of his voice. "Since you can transform anything into any form you wish, we will transform these monkeys into an army, and with that army, we will conquer the Oz people." "The monkeys won't make much of an army," objected Kiki. "We need a great army, but not a numerous one," responded the gnome. "You will transform each monkey into a giant man, dressed in a fine uniform and armed with a sharp sword. There are 50 monkeys over there, and 50 giants would make as big an army as we need." "What will they do with the swords?" asked Kiki. "Nothing can kill Oz people." "True," said Ruggedo. "The Oz people cannot be killed, but they can be cut into small pieces, and while every piece will still be alive, we can scatter the pieces around so that they will be quite helpless. Therefore, the Oz people will be afraid of the swords of our army, and we will conquer them with ease." "That seems like a good idea," replied the boy approvingly. "And in such a case, we need not bother with the other beasts of the forest." "No, you have frightened the beasts, and they would no longer consent to assist us in conquering Oz. But those monkeys are foolish creatures, and once they are transformed to giants, they will do just as we say and obey your commands. Can you transform them all at once?" "No, I must take one at a time," said Kiki. "But the 50 transformations can be made in an hour or so. Stay here, Ruggedo, and I will change the first monkey, that one at the left, on the end of the limb, into a giant with a sword." "Where are you going?" asked the gnome. "I must not speak the word in the presence of another person," declared Kiki, who was determined not to allow his treacherous companion to learn his secret. "So I will go where you cannot hear me." Ruggedo the gnome was disappointed, but he hoped still to catch the boy unawares and surprise the magic word. So he merely nodded his lion head, and Kiki got up and went back into the forest a short distance. Here he spied a hollow tree, and by chance it was the same hollow tree in which the Wizard of Oz, now in the form of a fox, had hidden himself. As Kiki ran up to the tree, the fox ducked its head so that it was out of sight in the dark hollow beneath the hole. And then Kiki put his face into the hole and whispered, "I want that monkey on the branch at the left to become a giant man 50 feet tall, dressed in a uniform and with a sharp sword. Pyrus Quickskull." He then ran back to Ruggedo, but the wizard fox had heard quite plainly every word that he had said. The monkey was instantly transformed into the giant, and the giant was so big that as he stood on the ground, his head was higher than the trees of the forest. The monkey raised a great chatter, but did not seem to understand that the giant was one of themselves. "Good!" cried the gnome. "Hurry, Kiki, and transform the others." So Kiki rushed back to the tree, and putting his face to the hollow, whispered, "I want the next monkey to be just like the first, Pyrus Quickskull." Again, the wizard fox heard the magic word and just how it was pronounced. But he sat still in the hollow and waited to hear it again, so it would be impressed on his mind, and he would not forget it. Kiki kept running to the edge of the forest and back to the hollow tree again, until he had whispered the magic word 6 times, and 6 monkeys had been changed to 6 great giants. Then the wizard decided he would make an experiment and use the magic word himself. So while Kiki was running back to the gnome, the fox stuck his head out of the hollow and said softly, "I want that creature who is running to become a hickory nut, Pyrus Quickskull." Instantly, the limenig form of Kiki Aru the Hyup disappeared, and a small hickory nut rolled upon the ground a moment, and then lay still. The wizard was delighted, and leapt from the hollow just as Ruggedo looked around to see what had become of Kiki. The gnome saw the fox, but no Kiki, so he hastily rose to his feet. The wizard did not know how powerful the queer beast might be, so he resolved to take no chances. "I want this creature to become a walnut, Pyrus Quickskull," he said aloud, but he did not pronounce the magic word in quite the right way, and Ruggedo's form did not change. But the gnome knew at once that Pyrus Quickskull was the magic word, so he rushed at the fox and cried, "I want you to become a goose, Pyrus Quickskull." But the gnome did not pronounce the word aright either, having never heard it spoken but once before, and then with the wrong accent. So the fox was not transformed, but it had run away to escape being caught by the angry gnome. Ruggedo now began pronouncing the magic word in every way he could think of, hoping to hit the right one. And the fox, hiding in a bush, was somewhat troubled by the fear that he might succeed. However, the wizard, who was used to magic arts, remained calm and soon remembered exactly how Kiki Aru had pronounced the word. So he repeated the sentence he had before uttered, and Ruggedo the gnome became an ordinary walnut. The wizard now crept out of the bush and said, "I want my own form again, Pyrus Quickskull." Instantly he was the Wizard of Oz, and after picking up the hickory nut and the walnut and carefully placing them in his pocket, he ran back to the big clearing. Dorothy the lamb uttered a bleat of delight when she saw her old friend restored to his natural shape. The others were all there, not having found the goose. The fat Gillikin woman, the Munchkin boy, the rabbit, and the glass cat crowded around the wizard and asked what had happened. Before he explained anything of his adventure, he transformed them all, except, of course, the glass cat, into their natural shapes. And when their joy permitted them to quiet somewhat, he told them how he had, by chance, surprised the magician's secret and been able to change the 2 limonigs into shapes that could not speak, and therefore would be unable to help themselves. And the little wizard showed his astonished friends the hickory nut and the walnut, to prove that he had spoken the truth. "But see here," exclaimed Dorothy, "what has become of those giant soldiers who used to be monkeys?" "I forgot all about them," admitted the wizard, "but I suppose they are still standing there in the forest." And that's the end of our chapter and the end of our reading for today. I hope you're enjoying the story. We'll continue on tomorrow, find out what more adventures will be happening now that we have Ruggedo and Kiki Aru transformed into things that cannot speak and are out of the way for the time being. So come back tomorrow for a few more chapters, and we will see what happens. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.